What's up everybody, my name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode, and today we are talking about Marvel Zombies, the 4-part event series, the animated series that came out on Disney Plus over the last week, and I let people watch it over the weekend. I wanted to see, if people were going to be interested, if the viewership was going to be there, and it wasn't necessarily greenlit for a season 2 right away. It still isn't officially right now, but from the viewership over the weekend, Marvel is like, hey, we might want to greenlit a season 2 of this. People seem to have really liked it. And it was like TVMA, it's gory, it's violent, but it's also, like a through story through the 4 episodes, and I think it was really well done. And it also kind of connects to the What If episode 5 titled What If Zombies. So we can jump right on into a recap for that episode in just 1 second. I just wanted to talk about the Rotten Tomatoes score that is currently sitting at. The last time I checked, it was sitting at an 80% Rotten Tomatoes score for critics with only 5 reviews and a 92% score for audiences. And this was like very, very early, so I'm very curious to see what it's at now. But, the posters for Marvel Zombies here, there was a bunch of good ones. This one here was put out very early with like the zombies coming up from the ground and zombie Captain America crawling towards us, Hawkeye, zombie Wanda in the background there with the red sky and the moon in the background. But then they did a couple of like parody spoof posters that I thought was hilarious. They had this one that says, "Don't open, Avengers inside." And it looks like they're all trying to squeeze out this crack in the door. And that was a Walking Dead reference to this one that said, "Don't open, Dead inside." And I wasn't a Walking Dead fan, but if you're gonna have a zombie thing, Walking Dead's probably the most famous zombie thing ever. So like, you gotta have some type of nod, right? They also paid homage to the Avengers poster from 2012, and they did like a Marvel Zombies rendition of this poster where each of them are now zombies, which I just thought was a nice touch. The only thing weird about this is Hulk's face. You just don't need to zoom in on that. They released this Marvel Zombies poster as well with Thanos in his Infinity Gauntlet and being a zombie and shit, and it looks like Zombie Abomination and Wanda's Horde in the background, but you can also see Captain Marvel zombie on the right, and it looks like maybe Hank right in front of her flying into camera. But it was funny to me, every time I looked at this picture, I looked over at Zombie Thanos and I thought he was flipping me off. I was like, hey man, oh wait, no, it's just like the way that the colors look around him. Maybe he's got like his index finger up, but it's like, maybe looks like a fist, but there's like a little bit of energy coming up above his index finger. And just looking quick every time I look at it, I'm like, is Thanos flipping me off? But the main zombies we're going to be dealing with going forward here are Zombie Wanda, Okoye, Zombie Thanos, Zombie Namor, which is an addition for this series, and Zombie Captain America, but only half of him because of what happened to him in the What If episode. They also had this funny poster where it was Marvel Zombies, and I was like, oh, it's just blood at the top, but then it's real tiny. You can see little tiny bloody footprints walking forward. It looks like maybe Ant-Man is in the middle of this poster. But What If Season 1 Episode 5 titled What If Zombies started this whole Marvel Zombies process, and we get to see how the outbreak kind of started, and we get kind of like an origin to this whole story and this part of the universe. But then we see different angles and different perspectives of it from different characters in the Marvel Zombie series. But just to recap quickly the What If episode, it opens with the events of Infinity War when Hulk crash lands into Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum saying, "Thanos is coming, Thanos is coming." But normally in the Infinity War, Doctor Strange and Wong standing there, and Doctor Strange goes, "Who? Who the hell's Thanos?" But when Bruce Banner lands in this universe, it's not the world he recognizes. No one is around, and it's just Bruce. When Ebony Maw in Cull Obsidian lands, just like they do in Infinity War, but a portal opens up behind Ebony Maw, and an Iron Man hand reaches through the hole and shoots Ebony Maw in the back of the head, and Bruce is all excited to see Tony, and then he realizes that Tony, Wong, and Doctor Strange are all zombies when they go a little too overkill on Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian. Wasp then arrives to save Bruce Banner and saves the day, saying she's all that's left, and we also see that Spider-Man is with her, swinging him away to safety. And we see the origins of the zombie outbreak was Janet Van Dyne, Hank Pym's wife, when she was down in the quantum realm. She got the zombie virus, and Hank, when they went down, he got infected as well, and they both came back to San Francisco, and the outbreak started. They got Scott first, and it looks like Wasp, Hope, got away, but you know, the first two were Hank and Janet, and within 24 hours the whole Pacific Northwest was infected. And once the Avengers got infected trying to stop it, they showed up on the San Francisco bridge, and once they got infected, no one stood a chance. We then see Spider-Man making a YouTube tutorial video of a zombie apocalypse guide, and he's with Happy Hogan and Kurt from Ant-Man. Baba Yaga sleeps at night, Baba Yaga comes at night. David Dastmalchian's character, I believe, of Kurt from Ant-Man. And we see Bucky Barnes is alive as well as Sharon Carter and Okoye. And this team goes to Grand Central Station to try and hook up, you know, a train to get the hell out of New York. And they lose Happy Hogan to Zombie Hawkeye. And Sharon Carter has to make Happy blam himself in the face. And he's got like a little Iron Man, the little tech from, I believe it's Civil War, where Tony just puts like a little Iron Man gauntlet on his hand from like his watch. Happy has that, and when he's using it to shoot, he doesn't just stick out his hand and we hear like the Happy kept going blam, 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 blam. So even the zombie version of him is going blam, blam. And he's coming after Sharon Carter, so Sharon's like, I'm sorry about this, and takes his hand, and as he's about to say blam, he blams his own face, killing Zombie Happy. I was like, ah, what a terrible way to go for Happy. And we see Zombie Falcon is also there, and he gets chopped down the middle by Okoye and her vibranium staff. Oh, short-lived Zombie Falcon. And the team is able to jumpstart the train, and Spider-Man gets Doctor Strange's cloak, and Wasp says it looks good on him. Zombie Cap gets Sharon Carter, and Bucky uses his shield to slice Zombie Cap in half and takes the shield for himself. And he's like, sorry Cap, this is the end of the line, but it's not for Zombie Cap, because Cap can do this all day, even if he is only half of himself, because half a Zombie Cap is going to be back in Marvel Zombies. Sharon Carter is then a zombie, and Wasp, you know, is real small and gets big inside of her and explodes Sharon all over herself. She's like, guys, I'm covered in Sharon! But Hope got bit while in this fight. So Hope sacrifices herself by going giant Wasp and walking them the rest of the way to Camp Lehigh after the train like ran out of gas or whatever. And she, you know, drops them over the fence in Camp Lehigh where they were going, and she dies covered in zombies as Giant Wasp. I was like, oh no. Vision is at Camp Lehigh and jump scares them when they arrive, and he's an android, so he's not on the menu for the zombies, and he's been experimenting with the Mind Stone to try and reverse the zombie virus, and he was able to save Ant-Man's head. So Scott was there when Hank and Janet, you know, broke out, but the rest of him got infected, but, you know, pretty much he's just a floating head now, or he's a head in a tank, and then he gets the Doctor Strange cape, so now he's just a floating head floating around. But Paul Rudd's great, so they probably were like, damn, we can't kill him. We only need his head, you know? Bucky goes and explores the lab and finds T'Challa with half a leg gone, and Vision's been feeding him to Wanda, and they try to make a run for it, but they awaken zombie Wanda, and she's hungry, and she gets Kurt immediately. Poor Kurt gets ripped apart. As they're trying to escape, she also gets Okoye, so now Okoye's on Wanda's team. Vision gets them out of there and like onto the other side of the fence, and Vision says he must atone for what he has done, but he cannot bring himself to leave Wanda, so he pulls out his own Mind Stone out of his head, killing himself. Bruce picks up the stone and makes a run for the Quinjet, but he gets on and they see that they're surrounded by zombies, and he's like, I think I could buy you guys some time. And Peter says, no, I don't think I can lose any more friends today. And Bruce says, so avenge us, and hands him the stone, and he goes and hulks it up, and zombie Wanda and Hulk square off 1v1 as they're flying away, but zombie Hope is giant and grabs them as they're flying away, but they use boosters and they're able to get away. So Spider-Man Ant-Man's head with Doctor Strange's cape, and T'Challa with 1.5 legs as this group goes back to Wakanda with the hope that they're going to be able to cure this zombie virus with the Mind Stone and use the technology in Wakanda to make a cure. But when they arrive back at Wakanda, they see zombie Thanos has already taken over Wakanda and already has 5 stones, and they are bringing him the last one, and it cuts to credits. And that's probably why this Marvel Zombies thing is a thing at all, because everyone was like, that's the cliffhanger you left us on for this zombie universe? Like, we gotta know what happens next, you know? And they did the same thing for Marvel Zombies. They left us on a huge cliffhanger, and now I'm sitting here like, I need to know what happens next. But so Bucky got yeeted by Wanda out into the oblivion, so he could still be alive somewhere with Cap's shield. He survived falls before. Hulk was last seen 1v1 with Wanda with an army of zombies surrounding him, so he could be alive, but probably unlikely. So that just leaves Peter, T'Challa, and Scott. They lost Okoye, Hope, Sharon, Kurt, Happy, all the Avengers, Hank, Janet, started the whole zombie virus, and zombie Wanda, zombie Thanos, as well as zombie Namor are gonna be a big problem heading into Marvel Zombies. But let's jump right on into it. Marvel Zombies episode 1 opens with a calm sunlight in the woods as a lone zombie gets an arrow to the side of the head, and it is retrieved by Kate Bishop, who is followed by Ironheart, Riri Williams, Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, in an Iron Man suit with a teddy bear for a head. They are walking through an abandoned New York City when a Quinjet crash lands, and the girls go to the crash site to find nothing but a dead pilot with an energy signature coming from its stomach. Kamala and Riri rock, paper, scissors, shoot for whose turn it is to do something gross, and Kamala loses. So she opens up this pilot's stomach and finds a shrunken down device when the pilot awakens a zombie. But they also start taking fire from zombie Hawkeye, and they have to get out of there, so the girls make a little runaway, and Hawkeye shoots a trick arrow at them, but Kamala is able to get her little block up first, so Kate is even able to get a trick arrow out of this. But she has to save this trick arrow for a special occasion. We then see that the girls have been living at Kate Bishop's mother's house, and Kate says her mother lived her life thinking something bad was going to happen, so she prepared for it. And Riri says, I guess she was right, something bad did happen, she was prepared. So they had like all this extra food, and these girls have kind of just been hiding out in this little apartment, not going out exploring, you know, not really doing a whole lot other than sitting in this place. We then learn that Riri got the Iron Man suit from Tony Stark's headless body, and Riri says, he wasn't using it. So now that's how she got this Iron Man suit, and that's why it doesn't have a head. We also learn that the little device Kamala found is a shrunken down transmitter with subspace amplifiers for cross-galaxy broadcasts, and this device is part of a project called Project Life Shot, a last-ditch effort to save the planet from the zombie virus. And Riri has located a shield ping coming from Ohio, and the girls have a comical conversation about if they should go or not, and the three of them talking to each other was really good. I want to see those three in live action chumming it up and being hilarious. But they have this comical conversation on if they should go to Ohio or not, and Riri gives them a 20% chance of success, but they pack up the sweet ride that Riri's been working on, called the Aurora, and they head out on its maiden voyage to save the world. And we cut over to zombie Okoye finding the crash site of the Quinjet, and she makes Hawkeye a scion of the zombie queen. And scions are like her most powerful of the horde, almost like she's building a little Avengers lineup of zombies, and then she's got like, you know, pawns like the rest of the zombie horde, or just kind of like troops, just send them in, but we need like our core Avengers team still, you know what I mean? So Hawkeye becomes a scion for the zombie queen. So we cut back to the girls in the car making their way to Ohio, and they come across this giant ravine with like a laser cut out of it, and they're like, there was supposed to be hills and like a whole park here, so yeah, we're gonna take the shortcut. And as they're driving, they see a storm, and the storm starts to get closer and closer to them, and nobody's around, so they're just like, uh-oh, this isn't a normal storm, we gotta get the hell out of here. And as they're driving, the storm keeps, you know, shooting right around them, them, and they crash, but Kamala uses her powers to shield around them. So then they run and hide behind this little barricade, and then they look up to see that the storm is actually people fighting up in the clouds. But they don't see that they are surrounded by zombies. They have to like kind of fight for their lives, and they're like, you know, springing into position to try and, you know, fight off these zombies. And all of a sudden an Eternal lands, and it's Icarus from Eternals, and zombie Captain Marvel is also the one fighting Icarus. But it's a hilarious part because Friday, in the Tony Stark suit with no head, has this extra funny line, but it's extra funny because the technology, the Friday technology is in this suit, and it doesn't have a head, so it just has like a pink teddy bear in its place. But Kate's like, ah, a zombie! And Friday's like, no organic material found, it is a machine. And then zombie Captain Marvel lands, and she just turns and goes, that one's a zombie. So Kate goes, oh, well, it's time to try out this trick arrow, and she shoots it, and it goes right through Captain Marvel and unceremoniously sets off confetti. So it was like a confetti trick arrow, so it wasn't even anything special. And Kate goes, shit, and then gets blasted by Captain Marvel and just incinerated to her death. I was not happy. I was so pissed at this. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Captain Marvel just absolutely decimates Kate Bishop, like, and they had that line in the trailer where she goes, shit, but they cut away from it. So, like, I thought it was just, like, gonna be this throwaway line, like her going, shit, we gotta go now, you know? Instead, it's her death. Oh, God, that one threw me for a loop because of the trailer cutting away from it, you know? So I wasn't expecting it, and all of a sudden I was just like, nah, Kate Bishop's dead? No! You know, I was so sad. And Kamala was sad, too, because she runs at Captain Marvel to avenge Kate, and this distracts Riri just for a moment, and she gets bit by a zombie. So Riri tells Friday to take Kamala out of here, and she gives her the transmitter to carry on the mission. And Riri stayed behind and is starting to wipe out all the zombies as they're closing in on her. And Kamala is left alone because Friday says, I lost one owner, I'm not leaving another. And Friday goes back for Riri. So maybe they're alright, but I think Riri was surrounded by zombies. She's probably dead back there. Kamala runs for her life as we see Icarus and Captain Marvel fighting in the background as they still kind of get closer and closer to her, and then their fighting knocks Kamala out just for a moment, and she's like, you know, fading as she sees a man on a motorcycle with a white cape grabs her. And then, you know, she like passes out, so it cuts to black. But Kamala, you know, has a nightmare we see, and all of a sudden it ends with a jump scare from zombie Wanda as she wakes up and she sees that she was saved by Blade. But also Blade in Moon Knight's outfit. So this is Blade Knight, the character of Blade, with the avatar of Khonshu. What a sick character. One of the coolest characters I've ever seen Marvel do, or, you know, like integrate two characters together in Blade Knight feels so right. Like, Blade and Moon Knight are two of my favorite characters I've seen. Both of them together, Blade Knight is an unbelievably cool character. And Blade tells us that she was in the Valley of the Broken Gods. Two beings matched with immense power, fighting forever because they can't beat each other and they can't die. And they only pause from fighting to kill whatever gets their attention and distracts them just for a moment before they go back to fighting. And Kamala says that she needs to get her little device to Ohio, and Blade says Khonshu is a friend of the Night Traveler and he will take her to Ohio. And she's like, just like that? Just like that. So they head out to Ohio on the back of his motorcycle, and he says that Khonshu's last avatar died in the plague, so now he acts through him. So is Mark Spector a zombie? Or is Stephen Grant or Jake Lockley a zombie? All three? One of them? I don't know how that would work, because zombie with three personalities? Interesting. They make it over to the SHIELD base in Ohio, but they see that it's surrounded by zombies, but not zombie Wanda zombies, and we see that these zombies are being controlled by Melina, Yelena's mother, the same way that she did the pigs in the Black Widow movie. And Red Guardian is also there with her kind of surrogate husband. And Melina informs us that the device was supposed to be launched into space to be able to send a signal to the Nova Corps. But when it was supposed to be launched, their base was overran by zombies, so they must have miniaturized it to smuggle it out. And Kamala knows that they swallowed it afterwards, so yeah, they were very desperate to smuggle this device out. And Melina says they are still going to have to get the device to space to be able to send a message to the Nova Corps. So that's the mission. Get this little thing to space, call Nova Corps. Should be simple, easy fixed, right? Maybe not, but that's the goal for now. And Red Guardian is like, oh yeah, go to space, so easy. Maybe your countryman can take you to space. Can you go to space, countryman? And Blade says, shh, quiet. They have found us. And the alarm goes off, and it's the Queen of the Dead's zombie horde led by Okoye. And we see the zombie lineup that she's got going on of Okoye, zombie Hawkeye, Ghost, Abomination, and half zombie Captain America, and a horde of zombies behind them. And the humans jump to their battle stations, and Red Guardian gives a rousing battle speech, and he ends it with, "This is not the night we fall!" As bombs go off, and he's like, boom, 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 oh yes! You know, and Red Guardian's loving it. And Kamala goes, oh my god, did we win? But it's just getting started. And Abomination throws half zombie Cap onto the roof of the facility, and he starts crawling through the vents, like, very creepy. But he's also so much faster because he's, you know, got the super soldier upper body but no legs to like weigh him down. So he's just, you know, he's like Lieutenant Dan, like he's fast as fuck, boy, you know what I mean? Zombie Cap makes it into the room where Red Guardian is, and Red Guardian and Cap have the fight that Red Guardian has been waiting for, but it ends with Red Guardian smushing Captain America's half of his body on the ground, and he kind of splats all over the ground, and he unfolds his arms from his shoulders, and Red Guardian's like, oh, they will sing of this battle, and Melina just looks at the splat and just how unceremonious it was, and she's like, nobody will sing of this. So no more half a zombie Cap. And we then see zombie Ghost rips apart some of the troops, and the zombies have gotten inside, so they make a run for it, but Melina stays back, and Red Guardian is like, no, my winter bear, no, you know, like my winter bear, you must not stay back, come with me, you know, like, I love Red Guardian's accent so much, it's too funny. And she controls the zombies at the last second as they're about to grab her, and Okoye walks around the corner like, the dead follow you? And she says, no, they follow science. And Okoye says, well, meet those who follow the queen. And she throws her vibranium spear through her chest. Oh, so no more Melina. And Blade senses zombie Ghost and single-handedly takes her out with a very impressive display of his using his blade. And then all of a sudden at the end his cape like reappeared, and like I was just like, oh dude, Blade Knight is such a sick character. Blade alone is a sick character, but Blade Knight, so sick. Yeah, he really slices and dices her, but you can see at the very beginning of that clip, he had a cape on, and then as he's fighting, the cape disappears, and then right after that clip ends, he's like standing there for a moment, and the cape reappears, and I was just like, dude, what a sick, sick outfit. Like, if we don't see this character in live action, at the very least, Hot Toys, give us a Blade Knight figure. I will get that so quickly. So the rest of our team escapes the SHIELD facility, and it blows up behind them, and Yelena cries out, Mama! Mama! And Red Guardian consoles her, and he says that they will honor her by taking this planet back from the dead, and they will help Kamala bring her device to space, but they don't have a ship. But Blade says, I know where we can find one, and that's credits on episode 1, and I was like, damn, so this is going to be like a Kamala story. She's got to get this little device somewhere, and she's like a main part part of this whole through line through the story. And I actually quite enjoyed that because I was like, oh shit, like Kamala Khan, Iman Vellani voicing her, she did a great job, and like her voice really lended to like animation. I thought like her voice was really animated. You could tell what she was experiencing through the voice animation, you know what I mean? Where some of these characters are not that great, and the look of them, animation style doesn't look that great, but I quite enjoyed Kamala. I was pissed she lost Riri and Kate, and Melina died as well, but for the zombies, they lost half a zombie Cap and zombie Ghost, so that's good. We got those two juggernauts off the table. Zombie Ghost was scary, and half a zombie Cap was also scary, so good thing they're gone. But on to episode 2 of Marvel Zombies, as we open with screams and feet running as Katie falls and Shang-Chi picks her up, and they are running for their lives as we see their perspective of Outbreak Day in San Francisco, since it was Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne who were the reason for the zombie outbreak. There are a bunch of zombies coming from the Pym lab, and there's some that are getting giant, and they're like, oh fuck, we gotta go. And all chaos is breaking loose as they're running for it, and the zombies start raining from on top of a building and splatting on the ground right in front of them. And they make it over to Chinatown where Katie's mom is, and it's already on fire and destroyed. And we see FBI agent Jimmy Woo, who is also from Ant-Man movies, and I believe she was also in WandaVision, and he takes out some zombies with his gun, and he joins them, and he's like, we gotta get the hell out of here, when they get surrounded by zombies, and Shang-Chi starts fighting, and he starts hand-to-hand beating the hell out of these zombies, and Katie's sitting there like, you know how to fight? How the what? You can fight? You know, like, because this is like the events of Shang-Chi for her, and instead of going on the events of Shang-Chi and learning that his real name is Shang-Chi and that he's a fighter and his father and, you know, the 10 rings and all that, they want to skip a few, and they have to fight this zombie outbreak, and she's like, what? You can fight? You know? So I'm guessing over the next 5 years, though, Shang-Chi explained to Katie, you know, how to fight, you know, why his name's not Sean and it's Shung, you know? But as they're fighting, we see Death Dealer and some attack helicopters arriving, wiping out the zombies, as San Francisco is a war zone, and the helicopters coming in over the sunset. It almost looks like a shot ripped out of Apocalypse Now. But we see Wen Wu, Shang-Chi's father, comes in with the 10 rings to save his son, and his dad tells him to come with him, and Shang-Chi says, we have to help save these people. And as Shang-Chi is saying to his father that they need to save these people, he gets bit by a zombie, and his father, just like in disappointment, calls him a soft-hearted fool, and he puts the 10 rings on his arm, and one of them comes up to stop the zombie virus from spreading into his body, using like the immortalness of the 10 rings to save him from the zombie virus. I just thought that was a very clever, creative way to use a hero's power to stop him from turning into a zombie. I was like, that's interesting, that's smart. And Wen Wu just stands there looking at him, and he says, remember what your mother taught you, as Shang-Chi has to witness his father get ripped apart by zombies. But they're able to escape on one of the helicopters with Death Dealer, and they ask, you know, what do we do now? And Shang-Chi says, we survive. And we cut to 5 years later as they were surviving, and Death Dealer and Jimmy Woo seem to be very chummy friends, and even though Death Dealer doesn't speak at all, he just kind of looks at Jimmy Woo, and Jimmy Woo is all the personality for both of them. Shang-Chi and Katie are in like a Mad Max style convoy, and they're singing Lights by Journey. And the lights go down in my city, you know, or like whatever, however the song goes, but it was very good song choice. I think it's also about San Francisco, which is like their hometown. But we see Skrulls on motorcycles are trying to steal their shipment, which is cows. And Katie and Shang-Chi are in a pink off-road Lamborghini. And Shang-Chi gave Katie 5 of the rings, so they use the rings together to fight off the Skrulls. And the convoy is able to make it over to the City on the Sea port. You know, it's like a little port where they're about to get on this like ferry almost, if you would, a giant boat, and we'll find out what this boat is. It's such a big boat that it's a city on the sea is what they're calling it, and they brought the cows as tribute to get on the boat. And when they are walking in, we see Red Guardian and our Kamala Khan team has also made it to the city on the sea. And we see that this place is ran by Baron Zemo, and he has John Walker working for him. And John Walker's like, I know they're pains in the asses and we don't like heroes, but those heroes over there brought the cows. And I know I don't have a vote, but like if I did, I'd vote for them because he clearly wants a cheeseburger. But we see that the city on the sea is the Raft prison, and they are welcomed aboard. And then Zemo gives a rousing speech to the citizens of the city on the sea, and he goes, let us honor the ones we have lost and the ones we wish could have joined us. We will take safety in the ocean depths, away from these dead lands, as they think that zombies can't swim. And then we see our team eating dinner, and Blade is sitting there, and he's like, I no longer consume blood. And Yelena asks what's the deal between Katie and Shang-Chi, and they both are like, no, we're just friends, you know, nothing like that. And Yelena is like, oh, good. And she kind of like just looks at Shang-Chi and hitting on Shang-Chi, and he's like, oh, hi, you know, and I'm like, I kind of ship them a lot. You know, they haven't necessarily met in the MCU yet, and I know in Thunderbolts you're kind of shipping Yelena and Bob, but like, Yelena and Shang-Chi, if not Shang-Chi and Katie, Yelena and Shang-Chi would be a pretty sweet matchup. I'm shipping that. But Kamala shows them the little device she has to the rest of the group, and they say that they are sailing to New Asgard, where they have a spaceship. And Shang-Chi's like, well, good luck with that, you know, like, this, one of them's a vampire, what? One of them, they want to go to space? I don't know what the deal is with those people. And Katie's like, listen, they have hope, and I haven't had that in a long time, so I'm actually envious of them, you know, and they need hope, you know, even in the hopeless of times, you need hope. We then see the Raft getting surrounded by underwater swimming zombies that are the Talokan people from Wakanda Forever, and Okoye and the rest of the zombie horde for the Queen of the Dead make it to the port of the city on the sea, and she's like standing there on the edge of the water, and she's like, they think themselves safe? No one is safe, as we pan down into the water as we see zombie Namor is becoming one of Wanda's scions. Namor alone is dangerous, but Namor zombie scion of Wanda, not good at all. And Kamala has a vision while she's sleeping of a glowing, jacked being, and then she, you know, gets jump scared by Wanda again and wakes up. And Blade is sitting there when she wakes up like, the Queen of the Dead. And she's like, what? No. And then an alarm starts going off on the raft, and it starts tipping, and all the cells that the teams are in go in lockdown. And it says, prisoner ejection authorized. And they're like, what the fuck? Eject? Like, they're gonna get put out into the water with all the zombies? And Zemo comes by and says, he's hungry, and we have found the only way to stop him is to feed him. And Zemo lets them out into the water, and Kamala shields them so that they don't drown, and there's like a shield around them. And Namor pushes her shield ball back into the raft through their little cell door, and now Namor is inside the raft. Zemo quickly activates the Hulk containment cell to stall Namor for a second, but then the rest of the Talokan zombies bust in the raft, and all fighting breaks out, and Kamala and the two teams of heroes now try to escape and get the device to Asgard. Namor busts out of the Hulk containment cell, and he's right behind them, and Kamala puts up a shield as Namor pushes them up against a door, and they're like, you know, all of them are standing between Namor in this door that Zemo locked them out of. But Namor is so strong that he pushes them right through this door, and then Namor starts to rip apart everybody on the inside, and the woman with the eye patch he rips in half. And he rips her in half the long way, and then he kills Walker the other way, chopping him in half at the waist. Kamala goes, this is what you want, and like kind of shows him the device in his hand, and then he tries to bite her hand as she has like the shield power around her hand, and then, you know, he keeps biting stronger and stronger, and it looks like the glass, you know, the power is about to break, and then she like uses her power and makes it almost into like a spiky ball. It explodes Namor's head, and the team gets into their escape pod, and they get out of there, but Yelena stays behind to go down with the raft, and she's like, there's no time, Papa. And she goes out drinking, and she pours a little in a glass, and she goes, some for me, and then she pours some out, and she goes, some for my friends. more for me. You know, like, so this Yelena is also a big drinker, like Yelena at the beginning of Thunderbolts. As we see explosions coming from the raft, and Red Guardian is just left in the escape pod crying, Yelena! As Zemo asks, where to? And Shang-Chi says, take them to New Asgard, as credits roll in episode 2. And I was like, God, each one of these episodes has been ending sadder than the last. Like, goddamn. So, you know, Yelena sacrificed herself for the team, so they lost Yelena, and Zemo lost the raft. John Walker died, as well as the poor lady with the eye patch, but they also got Zombie Namor, so that's pretty clutch. But we jump over to Marvel Zombies episode 3, and it opens with a flashback to 5 years ago, to the end of What If season 1, episode 5, in the Zombies episode, where Spider-Man, T'Challa with one leg, and Ant-Man with only his head in the Doctor Strange cape floating around. And Spider-Man opens it with, I wish I could tell you how we won and cured every zombie on the planet, but I can't, because it's not what happened. And we see that as they arrived back to Wakanda, the Watcher was up in the sky watching them come back, but Spider-Man says, something was waiting for them when they arrived back. Something that we were warned about. Thanos. And he wanted the Mind Stone. The three of them fought Zombie Thanos, who had immeasurable power, but his infected brain couldn't focus the power. But then T'Challa saw that Zombie Thanos was learning how to use his Infinity Gauntlet, and it wouldn't be long before he was unstoppable. And things were looking bad. They were outnumbered by zombies surrounding them when Thor arrives with Stormbreaker, Rocket, and Groot, just like the events of Infinity War. But instead of, you know, bring me Thanos, and, you know, going for the neck, and then Thanos snaps. But this time, Spider-Man goes, Thor threw the axe at Thanos because he has a score to settle. But that's not this story either. So Zombie Thanos uses his Power Stone to eviscerate Rocket into a skeleton. I'm pretty sure Groot just burns away entirely, and Thor just gets knocked back heavily. And Spider-Man grabs Stormbreaker out of Thanos' chest and throws it back at him, but it's just a distraction so he can use the rock above Thanos to squish him. But this just slows Thanos down just for a moment for Spider-Man to throw T'Challa the Mind Stone. And T'Challa is able to hold his own for a second, 1v1 against Thanos. But Thanos gets the Mind Stone from T'Challa, and Peter says T'Challa said, Wakanda forever, quietly under his breath, like he knew it was the last time, as he pushed Thanos into the Wakandan vibranium reactor, saving the universe. And they thought it was over, but the energies from the stones caused a storm that started warping the fabric of reality around them. And they thought they were dead when a portal opened up, and they were saved by the friendly sorcerers of Kamar-Taj. And we see the sorcerer, Man Bull, the woman, and there's another man from Multiverse of Madness, which I don't necessarily recognize the names, but I recognize the characters. And the Man-Bull sorcerer comes to tell them that the Queen of the Dead marches on Paris. Are we ready to fight? Yes, but we will not be alone. And we cut over to our team in the escape pod, making it to solid land at New Asgard. And Kamala uses Red Guardian's words against him. What do we say about the ones we lose? We honor them with every breath we take. You're right, little one. My little bear did not die in vain. And they go up to the front door of New Asgard, and Valkyrie is there. And she says they are not welcome here. And he tells them to leave, but they ask to see Thor. And she's like, are you deaf? And she says, this is a refuge for gods, not mortals. And Moon Knight gets angry for a second. Who said I'm immortal? And she kind of jumps down like, yo, you are definitely immortal. Don't you dare say you're a god. And Khonshu comes out of Moon Knight all angry as hell. And he's like, I am the moon god. The world has changed so much that Asgardians no longer recognize my deity? And Valkyrie just laughs and goes, Khonshu, my god, you little bird-headed bastard, how you been, man? You know, like, I died laughing at this line so hard. I was like, dude, Tessa Thompson had a blast reading these lines. Khonshu, you little bird-headed bastard, what you doing, dude? How you been? But it looks like Valkyrie's talking to herself to the rest of the crew because they can't see Khonshu's form. So it just looks hilarious. But Valkyrie allows them inside because of Khonshu. So Blade's like, you're welcome. And she says that they have been seeking refuge in these cliffs in hiding from the pathetic sight of human failure because it's a bit of a bummer. And they go in and they see that the Asgardians are enjoying revels and music and food, and they're fighting and drinking and partying. And Red Guardian sits and goes, I shall eat for you later, you know, like, and he's eating and drinking and like enjoying the revels in sorrow for his lost members of his family, you know. Kamala tries to talk to Thor, but Valkyrie stops her and saying, you can't see that he's broken? And Shang-Chi's like, well, at least he keeps everybody well fed. But Valkyrie says, no, the Queen of Sokovia brought this feast. And Zemo's like, there is no Queen of Sokovia. And we see Wanda Maximoff looking like her normal self, and they all get defensive. And she says she was infected, that is true, but she was able to hone her thoughts and regain her abilities to resculpt reality. So she did and healed herself from the virus. And Wanda says that the Wakandan event released infinity energies to be able to reshape this world, but somebody stole it for themselves. And Kamala saw this person in her vision for a moment, but Wanda says that she cannot defeat him on her own. She needs an army with the strength of gods. And we see as the Asgardian troops start coughing from all the eating that they were doing, and Valkyrie knows that they have now been betrayed. As we see Wanda was playing them the whole time and warping reality to make it look like she wanted it to, just like she would try to trick Doctor Strange at the beginning of Multiverse of Madness. Same type of idea where it's like, oh, nothing's wrong here, it's all normal, and then all of a sudden the effect comes down and it's all red and decaying and the Scarlet Witch has taken over. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, was really the Queen of the Dead the whole time, because the false reality comes down and we see that everybody in the room is zombies and that Wanda is still the Queen of the Dead, and the Asgardians have been eating zombie flesh, so they all start to turn into zombies, as well as Red Guardian ate a lot of fingers, he says, so he's gonna start turning into a zombie as well. And we learn that Wanda doesn't want the device, she just wants Kamala. So what is Kamala's part in this? And then fighting breaks out and Zemo gets his heart punched out of his chest, so no more Zemo. And then Thor gets surrounded by zombies and Death Dealer gets killed right in front of Jimmy Woo, and then Jimmy Woo gets ripped apart. And the rest of the team makes a run for it, and Wanda says, you cannot outrun your fate, child. And they almost make it out, and they make it to the Grandmaster's ship, but Red Guardian finally turns into a zombie, and Kamala's like holding him back, and she's like, Alexi, no, I'm sorry, I will honor you. And she pushes the zombies back, and the team takes off in the ship, but it's being held back by Wanda's magic, and Wanda says, Kamala, the hope you seek is down here with me. There is no salvation in the stars. You must stay here. We can heal the world. And then some electricity starts to make the girl's hair go up, and they're like, guys, what's going on? And Thor knocks back Wanda for a moment, and the team's like, yeah, that's my king. That's the god of thunder. Let's go, Thor. And we see Thor and Wanda go and fight one-on-one, and Thor tells them to leave, and Kamala is like, what? You're not coming with us? You're the last Avenger. And Thor's like, no, little one, you're the Avenger now. Now go. And the team takes off as Thor buys them time, and they make it up to outer space, and Valkyrie syncs up the comms from Kamala's little device to send a message to the Nova Corps, and Kamala hits a little button and she's like, oh, how long is this going to take? And then all of a sudden a flash of light comes on, and it's the Nova Corps, and they're already arrived, and Valkyrie says this isn't right. It should have taken weeks for that message to reach them. The Nova Corps were already here. And the Nova Corps says to them, turn back your ship. Your planet has been quarantined by the Nova Corps. And Kamala is like, quarantined? And the Nova Corps says, your planet has been declared condemned, and any attempt to flee the planet will be met with incineration. So Kamala finds out that the Nova Corps knew the whole time and they didn't come to help. They never came to help us. They came to make sure no one left. And then the Nova Corps starts counting down from 10 for them to make them return back to the planet or be shot down. And the countdown gets to 1 and they cut to the credits. I was like, oh my god, another cliffhanger? Now I need to click on episode 4. But, you know, so at the end of that one, Thor and Wanda were going 1v1 the last time we saw him. But we also saw this weird vision of this person harvesting the Infinity Stone's power. So who is that person harvesting the powers that Wanda's after? And they also, the team lost Red Guardian. He became a zombie this episode. Zemo died, Death Dealer and Jimmy Woo all got ripped apart, leaving Kamala, Valkyrie, Shang-Chi, and Katie, and Blade Knight all left on the Grandmaster's ship up in space as episode 4 starts, picking up right where we left off. The Nova Corps is now after our team in the Grandmaster's ship, and they say that the ship now falls under disinfection protocols, and they are trying to incinerate them. And Kamala is like, they were supposed to help us, not shoot us out of the sky. And Blade says, this is them helping. They think they're trying to stop the zombie plague from spreading across the universe, you know, so they think they're doing the right thing. So maybe the Nova Corps aren't bad people, they're just trying to save the galaxy. Or maybe the Nova Corps are like the guardians of the galaxy, if you would. And Shang-Chi tries to help Valkyrie by hitting buttons, and he hits the wrong one and cuts off the engine, and Valkyrie's like, what did you do? And Shang-Chi says, I don't know, man, I've never been to space before. And they end up getting blown up, but Kamala uses her little protection barrier magic to, you know, shield around them as they start plummeting down to the earth, and Valkyrie's like, oh, look at you saving everybody, making us fly. And she's like, who said I could fly? So this little ball just starts plummeting to earth as fast as possible, and then Kamala's bubble like breaks and they all start like falling, skydiving, and everyone's like, ah, but Blade is just crossed arms standing straight up and down as the cape just goes straight up, and Shang-Chi's like, what the hell is going on here? And, you know, he's just casually standing there as a portal opens up, and they all get portaled to Comertage with the other sorcerers and Scott Lang's head in Spider-Man. And Spider-Man and Miss Marvel's first interaction was hilarious and exactly how you'd think that would go. And Scott's head with the red Doctor Strange cape looks at Blade and his cape and says, white cape, huh? Bold for a zombie apocalypse. Kind of like, you know, Deadpool. I wear red because bad guys can't see me bleed. This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants. You know, so Scott's got a red cape for the zombie apocalypse. If blood gets on it, oh well. Poor Blade. Maybe that's why when he starts fighting, the cape disappears, because that thing can't get blood on it, right? I don't know. Blade's got to look crisp at all times. Zombie Wanda and her army are heading towards the energy beacon, and we learn that the person that absorbed the Infinity Stones was Hulk. So Bruce Banner and the Hulk survived fighting Wanda in that What If episode 5. But the sorcerers say that he is no longer Bruce Banner or the Hulk. He is a cipher. He is now an anchor, protecting energies that could make or destroy worlds, protecting us. And Blade is like, so this is the part where you tell us why we are here. And they say, so you have met the Queen of the Dead, and she has finally gathered an army strong enough to defeat Banner and take his power for herself. Our last stand is upon us. The battle is now. We ask you to ride into danger with us to fight for the fate of the planet. And Scott says, we don't ask this lightly. We know you guys have been through a lot, so we leave you to decide. And we cut over to Kamala sitting there thinking to herself about Riri and Kate and Yelena and Alexei, and she's seeing all the faces and people that she's lost on this journey, and she starts to cry as Shang-Chi comes and sits next to her. And she thinks that everyone was following her for a chance to fix everything, and it was all for nothing. And Shang-Chi says that she gave them hope. She gave Thor one last chance to fight, and she gave him that. And she gave it to all of us, and I'll always be grateful for her for that. And Shang-Chi says, if we have one more chance, I'm gonna take it. And Kamala's like, are you sure? And he says, we have to win one of these eventually, don't we? Also, am I crazy, or did Thor kind of make you an Avenger back there? And he definitely kind of did. And she hugs Shang-Chi, and then the rest of the team walks up, and Valkyrie's like, so is the little one found her fire? And she's like, yes. So the rest of the team is in for one last chance to save the world, and we cut over to see Infinity Hulk growling as the army of the dead arrives, and she sends in her horde first with Abomination, and Infinity Hulk one punches him and blows back the horde. And Wanda brought the raft and opens it up above the Hulk and tries to drown him, and all the like underwater zombies start attacking him as well, but that doesn't work either, and he blows them back, and then the Hulk starts taking a beating from a couple of giant zombies, but he slices them up too. Then the zombie guardians leap in, and they start fighting him from the goat boats, and they get a couple of cuts in on Infinity Hulk, and he starts wiping them out as the goat boats rain fire, bringing the Hulk to his knees. But I have a clip of this whole event. Oh man, that little 2-minute clip of the Hulk absolutely decimating all and like, you know, being Infinity Hulk, and he doesn't seem as powerful as you think he might be. He is crazy powerful, but like, you know, the Horde is still able to get up to him. Like, I would think a creature that powerful wouldn't let anything get near him, but you know, sometimes just the overwhelming mass of the Horde just overwhelms him at a certain point. But like, as he was just like taking that beating, as they like show his face just like taking shots from those giant zombies, and then he like slices them up, and then like looks up, he sees the goat boats about to rain fire down on him, and like he brings him to his knees, and Wanda's like, it's a burden, isn't it, holding all this power? I've come to ease your pain. And Shang-Chi's rings come in from behind him and knock her back into her horde, and Infinity Hulk like looks over his shoulder like, that wasn't me, who was that? And as we see our heroes joining him in the fight, and Kamala looks around all nervous, and Shang-Chi looks at her saying, see you on the other side, and Wanda says, Kamala, I'm glad you came, child, and Kamala says, Bismillah. And they start fighting, and we see our heroes, Infinity Hulk, Kamala, Shang-Chi and Katie, 3 sorcerers from Kamar-Taj, Blade Knight, Valkyrie, Ant-Man's head with Doctor Strange's cape, Spider-Man versus the Queen of the Dead and her zombie horde. So this lineup of like Avengers versus the army of the dead is like actually a pretty sick lineup. But they charge at each other, and Kamala uses her light powers to chop off a bunch of zombies' heads. Blade Knight springs into action, and we see a sick shot of him with Khonshu and his blade as it comes across his face as he starts slicing and dicing up zombies. We then see Valkyrie, Katie, and the sorcerers, as well as Ant-Man's head taking out a bunch of zombies. And we get a great shot of Spider-Man ripping off a bunch of zombies' heads with one web pole. And then Infinity Hulk starts to heal his cuts, and Zombie Wanda sends in more of her horde, and Zombie Hawkeye releases Hank and Janet out from his mouth. The first two zombies, shrunken down to ant size, were living in Hawkeye's mouth. Weird. But then Hawkeye gets sliced in half, but Zombie Hank being able to shrink down to ant-sized is terrifying, and Hank gets stepped on by Blade, but then grows up to Giant Man underneath his foot, and then Spider-Man uses Hank's giant hand to punch himself in the face, and he's like, "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?" Which I think any older brother with a little brother has done that, right? We then see Zombie Janet goes to giant woman sized, and Kamala throws a giant light punch up to her face, knocking her out, saying, "Eat it, bitch!" And Janet comes back very quickly, pissed off, to punch Kamala, but Valkyrie pushes her out of the way, and Valkyrie gets smushed, and I was like, oh no, this can't be the way Valkyrie dies, but she crawls up through the arm of Janet and explodes Janet's head from the inside out. So she's not dead, and I guess it's just that hard to kill Asgardians. Zombie Hank gets tired of punching himself in the face, so he shrinks back down, but then gets bodied by Scott's head, and then Khonshu goes, "Behind you!" to Blade, and he turns around and slices ant-sized Zombie Hank in half in this sick, like, slow motion shot. We then hear Wanda whispering to Kamala from, like, across the battlefield, saying, "Help me, I'm trying to save you all." And Wanda's, like, trying to get into Kamala's head, and Wanda says, "You are blind to your own salvation. If I can't convince you, maybe your friends can." And we see Zombie Red Guardian, Yelena, and Milena. So at least they're back together as a family, just zombies now. And they start attacking Kamala, and she's like holding them back, like, "No, guys, my friends." And then, you know, Wanda starts using their personal attachments against them. And we see Scott sees giant zombie Hope, and Spider-Man and Scott start fighting her. Shang-Chi and Katie see zombie Death Dealer and zombie Jimmy Woo that were ripped apart into pieces, so pieces of them start attacking them. And then Red Lightning starts to clash as two sorcerers get electrocuted to death, and we see Thor, who is now zombie Thor. So in the last episode, he was battling zombie Wanda, and Thor lost. And Wanda says, "It's time." And Valkyrie charges at Thor, but Okoye stops her. So Okoye and Valkyrie go 1v1 against each other, and I was like, that's actually a pretty damn fair matchup right there. That's probably going to go on for a while. But zombie Thor with Stormbreaker still as he walks towards Infinity Hulk, which makes sense because Hulk and Thor squared off way back in the first Avengers, and they've always kind of been pitted against each other, so it's kind of fitting that zombie Thor goes against Infinity Hulk here at this moment. But Blade tries to go for Thor, and it looks like he gets incinerated by lightning, but you saw the other two sorcerers' skeleton, you didn't see Blade's skeleton, so I'm thinking maybe Blade Knight here got teleported somewhere from, like, the Bifrost that Thor was using. But if it was just lightning, you know, maybe he's dead. He could be dead. I was very mad that this is how they made Blade Knight go out. I was like, no, 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 no! Not Blade Knight! Fuck! We then see zombie Thor and Infinity Hulk fight, and their powers are blasting everywhere as Hulk, you know, jumps up into the sky, throws Thor up, and then slams him down, and then uses himself to come down and punch Thor and crushes Thor's skull. So this is what he could have done in Thor Ragnarok, I guess. But right after Hulk kills zombie Thor, he locks eyes with Kamala just for a moment, and it gives Wanda a second to get over to Hulk and touch him, and she starts absorbing his powers, and Shang-Chi sees this and goes, "No!" and he gets bit again, and then Man-Bull gets ripped apart as he realizes that Banner has been touched by Wanda and they have lost. And it's just sad seeing, like, you know, they've already lost and now they're losing more and getting ripped apart at the last second. You're like, no, God, they were so close. Kamala goes goes to start punching Wanda. Nothing is working, and Wanda says, I knew you'd be here at the end, and we would do this together. And she says, I'm too strong for you, Kamala, but still not strong enough to save us. I need you. And Kamala says, I can't help you. If I help you, I betrayed the memory of all of my friends. All who suffered died. In Shang-Chi, we see becoming a zombie, and Valkyrie gets stabbed by a Okoye, so the rest of our team is like getting wiped out. And Wanda says, look around at all the suffering, take my hand, join me. And Kamala flashes through all the faces we have seen on this journey and all the people she's lost, and she says, I'm sorry, as she thinks about them, and says, this can't all be for nothing. And she takes Wanda's hand, and the cosmic energies from Kamala's bangle, Infinity Hulk, and Wanda start to merge, and Wanda says, and so the world begins again. And this kind of like big bang flash and boom goes off, and we see this big white flash, and then it cuts to Kamala waking up in her bed to her mother's voice and telling her that her friends are at the door. And she's like, what? My friends? And she goes to see that Kate and Riri are still alive, and she squeezes them so tight, and then they go and get boba, and she's like, I haven't had boba in like 5 years. And they're like, we had boba yesterday, what are you talking about? And she's like, I love you guys, I love Jersey. And Kamala's acting all weird because she hasn't been home in 5 years, and they have. So they're like, dude, what is going on with you? Something weird's up here. What has gotten into you? And Kamala is really living it up, taking it all in. She even sees a cute guy across the street, and she's like, oh, I might even want to go talk to him. And they're like, oh yeah, he is cute. But just as she says this, she's like, I could just eat him up, num 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 num. And as she says this, her reality kind of breaks for a second. She sees a flash of the zombie world that she used to live in, and it's like Wanda has warped reality so that it feels normal, but it's still the zombie reality. Kamala can hear and see Riri fighting as it like flashes between like this zombie reality and then like reality. So then you're like, wait, which is reality? Is this nice world fake and then the zombie world's real? Like, but then also we thought Riri got ripped apart. So, you know, Kamala's seeing zombie world in Riri still, but she's sitting next to Riri and Kate. So she's like, what is real? What is happening? You know, that's like a crazy mind fuck. So Kamala can hear and see Riri still fighting, saying that she hacked the signal. Don't believe what she's saying. It's all fake, Kamala. It's not real. And Kate says, Kamala, you good? As Kamala is left sitting there not knowing if this is real or not, and we cut to black and then a jump scare from Zombie Wanda as the credits roll on the 4-episode Marvel Zombie series. And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's where they leave us, on a pretty big cliffhanger for a potential season 2 of Marvel Zombies. And I kind of still want to know what happened at the end there, you know? So if they give us that in season 2, I'd be happy, but like, what happened with Infinity Hulk and like the rest of that team? And if Riri's still alive, and how is that possible? But like also if she's alive, who else does that mean could still be alive? Maybe Bucky? Like he was thrown and yeeted by Wanda at the end of the What If episode, and he didn't show up in this series, but like Zombie Cap did. So maybe Bucky's still alive out there somewhere with Cap's shield. And like, did Blade Knight, Shang-Chi, Katie, Spider-Man, did the rest of them all die at the end there? Like, and what happened to Wanda, you know? Like, and how did this reset? Like, did it actually reset to good? Or did she just make the world look like it's normal, but it's really zombie everything and it's all fuck still? You know, so when you have a reality warper that's a zombie, all hell breaks loose, you know what I mean? Like, things could go real left real quick. But just to shout out the main cast of the Marvel Zombies: IMAN, VELLANI, David Harbour, SIMU Liu, Elizabeth Olsen, Randall Park, who's Jimmy Woo, Florence Pugh, my girl, Hailee Steinfeld, my other girl, Dominique Thorne, my other fucking girl, and Todd Williams, who I believe, Todd Williams, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Todd Williams was voicing Blade in this series, but wasn't there a Blade TV show that wasn't very successful back in the day that Todd Williams played Blade in that? And also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Todd Williams is also the guy who played some character in Deadpool and Wolverine, and he was in the background. I don't know if it was Blade. I want to say it was another character, but like I want to say he was like there in the background as one of the characters. But if that wasn't Mahershala Ali as Blade Knight in this Marvel Zombies, whoever that was did a spot-on Mahershala Ali impersonation. And like, come on, Blade Knight was such a sick character, and like he looks so cool with the swords, the Moon Knight attire, but also the Blade attire, the white eyes, the fangs, like he's friggin' still Blade. Oh god, what a cool looking character. I hope we see more Blade Knight in the future. At the very least, I hope we see Moon Knight and Blade in the future. And at like a hopeful, ness of my brain, Hot Toys, make a Marvel Zombies Blade Knight character, please, because I don't necessarily have any animation figures from video games or anything like that, but this animated character, I would buy that figure so quickly. Comment below if you agree and if you liked these 4 episodes in this video. I really appreciate you guys for sticking this far into the video. Marvel Zombies was an epic little animated show from Marvel, and I don't know about y'all, but I kind of want to see a season 2 and see what happens next. But if they don't, it's not the biggest deal in the world. There's other stuff in Marvel animation that's going to come out that's awesome, like X-Men 97 season 2, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man season 2. I think I would rather see those shows continue rather than What If or Marvel Zombies. But hey, if they do Marvel Zombies and it comes out in like Halloween time, I would be not mad at that at all. Like this felt maybe slightly early. If this came a couple weeks later in Halloween time, I would not have been mad. But I'm not mad now. This was a fun show. I had a fun time breaking it down and watching it. And yeah, that's it for me, y'all. So comment below your thoughts about Marvel Zombies, and if you have any theories going forward and what happens, or if there's anything I missed throughout the episodes, please let me know down in the comment section below, or you can message me on my other social medias. Links for those down in the description below. But if you've made it this far in the video and you would like to support the channel, the best way of doing that is liking this video, dropping a comment down in the comment section below, subscribing if you haven't already, hitting that bell so you don't miss future Comically Boston breakdown episodes. And once again, my name's Big Cam. Thank you guys so much for coming on by, and I will see you beautiful people in the next video. Peace!